The wine, Swiss wine. You know, wine.
I tried some last night. Yeah. Could I have another beer? Please? Thank you. Well, I mean, wine and beer don't really mix, and
first beer, then wine is okay, but the other way around doesn't work.
Yeah.
There's a saying in German that rhymes.
I'm sure that's true. Yeah, I've never thought of that. Yeah. Because I always learn these things about 6 months after everybody else. And my life seems to be a process of always having to learn the hard way, but I don't mind really, because you pick up a lot of information on the way. You know?
Have you finished Fat Old Elvis?
Fat Old Hero, it's called.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, I finished that a long time ago. Yeah, but I just, again, it's looking for the right singer to do it, and I might have to do it myself in the end. So that's the problem, to find someone who can, with sufficient sense of despair, to do this, you know, and not turn it into some kind of celebration of rock and roll, which it isn't, you know.
It's material for one record.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Some of the songs written by Bob Ward, I mean, musically, one or two of them, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Maybe when I get back together with him, we'll carry on with that project, I don't know.
Yes.
But you have so many projects, it does get a bit confusing, you know.
Yeah.
That's why I still drink a beer and forget about it.
My last question. Have you heard of the youth movement in Zurich?
I have, yeah, yes. I mean, only scant reports in newspapers in England, which have from a distance it seems like a rebellion against anti-feeling, you know, an attempt to give some spirit to a dormant society or something like that, you know, a sleeping society. But all movements are like that, aren't they? You know, similar things go on in England, you know.
Yes.
Well, the Brixton riots and things like that. I'm not sure whether I like movements or banners, you know. They frighten me a little bit, you know.
Well, the Swiss movement always refused to erect banners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well, that's a good start.
The movement, yeah. The word movement wasn't really from the movement itself.
No.
It came from outside.
Yeah.
It was picked up.
Yeah.
What's your impression of Switzerland?
Well, I like it so much better now than I did before, but then again, the last time was a little bit of a blur. I mean, I was in a situation which I hated, and this time around, I like it very much, but I mean, in a hotel and just a few streets, and I'm not one for walking around much, and but what I've seen is much more, well, at least my own impressions are much more positive. I mean, I feel I could work here again and come here again and maybe come here regularly, you know, because that's usually how it starts with a country. I do one show or two shows, and then a thing builds up and a relationship starts with people in the country, and the same happened in Belgium and Holland and Germany now, and France and Australia too, and places like that too. So, and I can think of lots of other places, but I can't remember them all. Norway, you know, and I think that's what will probably happen. I mean, I shall come back again, hopefully, and you know, and build on what's been started this time around. Because I think it's important too. I think it's important that people see somebody who's a bit real, anyway, you know, and not not very, it's, I mean, I was on Bavarian television, and there were people rang in and protested. What's he doing on the television? Because they'd just come back from work, and I didn't look as if I was miming very well to this. Liberation was the song, and but it's very good, I think. It just gets better all the time.
What's your impression of Switzerland from the outside, from what you read in the papers?
Well, in the English press, I don't think there's much interest in Switzerland in England at the moment, and I don't think there ever was. But
not in the papers.
No. On the outside, one gets the impression of a wealthy society, divided, language-wise, which I was asking you about the other day. A little like Belgium, I feel, in one sense. I mean, very different in terms of scenery, but little factions arguing language, arguments of racial base, how it all fits together. I'm quite surprised, really. No doubt I shall find out. I mean, that was the impression I had last time I was here. It was that there was the Latin temperament, if you like, was there, and their attitude to music is very different to, say, the German attitude, or they're more susceptible maybe to pop stars than. I mean, you only have to work in Spain or in Italy to find that out. I mean, that's what I found very depressing about, say, touring Italy, was that there were lots of people who were very interested in what I was doing, but the general mass were led by some, media hype attitude, which just is a total opposite to everything. I was very depressed, and I was glad to get out. But then again, I should probably go there as well again. You
felt that stronger in France and in Italy than
in Italy? No, France is very different. I feel it's much, in a way, much better organised, and France used to be like Italy, I feel, just from my point of view. When I work in France, I mean, people in France don't understand anything I'm saying, or they think that they tell me they don't. But I do enjoy playing in France. So it's very hard work. It's hard work for musicians, but it has its rewards, Paris. I played in Paris last year. I did 5 shows in Paris and around Paris, which were very good. Not always a lot of people, but Paris is like that. One day you'll get 1,000 people, and the next day like 100. It's just the attitude, and we've been there before. We won't go today, and they protest in a way against anyone being, anyone getting ideas too. It's like, it seems to me like a conscious process. Yeah. I think it's quite healthy, really.
Well, they have their stars.
Yes, but that's another world altogether. Their stars tour the countryside, and play in tents and do the most bizarre things.
Superstars like telephone.
Yeah, well, they're
real superstars.
Yeah.
Playing big sports stadiums.
Yes, well, France has always needed
very few people.
Yes, but they've also got Magma, which was one of the great bands, and Gong was part French, and all his madness, but it's some wonderful music. Telephone is probably just a media hype, giving the people what most of them probably don't want anyway. I'd be interested to know how many records they actually sell, but it's
more than anyone else is that.
That's sad.
Yeah.
But I remember the French punk movement. That was very interesting. band called Stinky Toys, I think.
Yeah.
But, it was such a parody of what John Lydon was doing, really. It was,
Yeah. And in England, is it still difficult for you for concerts and reactions?
No, not really. No, not at all. No. I mean, I did a short tour a few weeks ago. I did 5 dates, which were very good.
Oh yes.
And because nobody wrote about it in the press. I think there is the English press have an aversion to me.
What, the music press? Or
The music
press
press, maybe the press in general.
have an aversion to you?
Well, they don't see. They maybe come to concerts and maybe they don't like the general feeling that the shows or something. Maybe it's not official enough and it's not grand enough, and nobody buys them a free meal, and nobody, something. All of those things may be part of it, or maybe they're just tired of writing nice things about me. I think they got fed up of doing that, and
maybe it's because it forces them to think.
Well, that has a lot to do with it. Well, I did an interview for NME, newsletter, and I mean, it was a travesty, it's a total of what I'd actually said, and I just couldn't believe it, I mean, in a way it was accurate, but the guy who'd written it had got everything wrong, and...
When was that?
About 3 weeks ago.
So if we go to the newsstand...
Yeah, you ought to buy it and read what the guy has written,
Yeah,
because I spent 5 hours talking to this guy. And then Keith Tippett was telling me last night that what I saw, there was an article about Julie Tippett's the next week by the same guy, which was just as inaccurate and wrong, written from some curious base. I mean, I only spoke briefly to Tippett's, but it was a bit violent. The confrontation last night was verbally quite difficult because he was telling me that my music was structured and easier than his music, which I thought was absolutely ridiculous. But he'd just come off a stage and he was, like I am sometimes, very animated and excited.
But the old contrast between jazzers and rockers, or what?
Well, I don't accept that at all.
I don't either, but
well, maybe
jazz
he may
keep on telling us.
Yeah.
Your music is primitive. And, one colleague, the Christian Ranch, who writes about jazz, the other day wrote something about rock music. Which is klasse. With Min Frage, Band.
Yes, absolutely, because they don't really listen. You see, I listen to quite a lot of jazz. I was brought up on jazz. My brother's a jazz musician, and normally I can relate very closely to jazz musicians. There's that kind of nagging jealousy there too, which has got something to do with them not being. They want to be stars. You see? That's. Maybe only Miles Davis has ever really made it on that.
Well, Louis Armstrong.
Yeah,
that's
sure.
about it.
Yeah. Well, it was Duke Ellington and people like that too. But
even Duke Ellington, I mean...
A Thelonious Monk, really. I mean, I don't know. I don't think he ever thought of himself as a suffering jazz musician. He had far too great a sense of humour for a start. And that's the thing a lot of jazz musicians lack. Any humour at all. How can they say that what they do is beautiful and whatever? It's when they take themselves so seriously. It's unbelievable. But that could easily be, that attitude. I'd still like to work with Keith Tippett on something and, just show him actually what I can do. So I even challenged him to a piano duel. He said, right. It was good, really. It was good. Yeah, we'll do it.
What, while you're here?
No way, no. I have to think about this.
could have
to
brought
get
the
practice.
dishes
Have to get
that you can throw on each other's head.
Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah. But I liked him. I thought he was great.
Est-ce que
Was?
concert?
Ja, sehr wohl.
He said, "Well, you don't know any of my music." He's quite right. I don't. But I mean, I just know he's good.
Does he know any of yours?
He says he knows some of it. Yeah. I mean, what has that got to do with it? I mean, it's, you know if someone has that energy and feeling. You know.
Tell me about the accordion, because I just started playing the accordion and I love it.
Oh yeah, well that's the guy who plays that. He's a guy called Paul Wickens.
Oh, you're not playing it
No,
yourself?
I don't play. No. No, I love the accordion. No, I love people who can play it. Yeah, it's a marvellous instrument. It's got a sort of compassionate sound all of its own.
It breathes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, it has got that breathing motion, hasn't it? Yeah. Bellows.
You know Lilliput? The Lilliput, ex-Kleenex, the women.
Well, I love them Kleenex. What happened to them though? I don't know.
They changed into Lilliput.
No. That first record they made was wonderful. That was the best rock, women's rock I've ever heard. Because it was, I thought it was the most marvellous record because, I just loved it because it sounded like women and it sounded like the rhythm of women and it was done in a way which was, free and shouting and strong. And the tunes were lovely. I loved them all. Beri Beri is one called Beri Beri and Heidi's Head. Oh, I love them. It's one of my favourite records actually.
Oh, yeah.
One of my most prized possessions.
Yeah, because they have one single.
I don't know what they're doing now.
One track with accordion, influenced by Swiss folk music.
Yeah.
Very funny track.
Yeah.
And now they have made a record, a long player.
An LP, still out.
It comes out at rough trade.
Oh, I'll have to get it then. Well, I'm sure I will. Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, it's great. Do you know the Young Marble Giants?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like that album by them? That LP by them is one of my favourites too.
Oh yes, yeah.
The girl singer on that, and just the feeling of innocence and strength it's got on it. I like it.
Yes.
But you ask average musicians, they can't understand that kind of situation. Rock and roll musicians who play them Young Marble or Kleenex, they'll say, it's just the noise.
Oh yeah.
I hate that, It's so narrow-minded,
Yeah.
When people have got something to say, The notes don't really matter that much in the end.
I suppose you listen to all kinds of music.
Well, I do, yeah. Well, I do. But having two sons who love music, I mean, they're constantly bringing records into the house anyway. And there's Mike always sends me everything on Cherry Red, and I'm constantly exposed to it. Whether I like it or not, because the house is very small. And I listen, and I mean, it's good because I can't stand bigotry, musical bigotry at any price. It's very dangerous, very dangerous for a musician to close their minds.
Yes. I remember years ago you have said in an interview that it's very difficult for you to listen to musicians who are similar to you.
Yeah, sure. Less difficult now.
Has it changed?
Yeah, sure. Oh, a lot.
A lot. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
What's your relationship to Bob Dylan?
Bob Dylan? I don't really know. I mean, maybe he's just a singer and a songwriter like me. But I like his collapse into Christianity interested me, and but I think he did it I think it was done with a wonderful sense of humour, and he's always had that. And I just think he's a great writer, but has written so much that I think the average, listener can't really cope with it all. There's that much, and I stopped around Blonde on Blonde, really, and then. They're such amazing records, and he's such an incredible songwriter. In a way, he still rules. When he actually says something, like the Christian album, just a very interesting reflection on the current paranoia as much as anything else. And he's just as human as anyone else, and that's really what he was. That's the way I interpreted it, and I liked that. I thought that was incredible.
But you never meet him?
No. I nearly did once. I think he was coming down some club or something in London, and I was playing at another club. But whether I think he would have liked what I did. But,
yeah, I think so too.
But you don't have that contact, You don't have that contact with people like Bob Dylan,
He has to protect himself.
Sure, I don't. We all do, That's the point. And I feel very vulnerable in my situation, so I don't know how he feels in his. It must be almost like a nightmare sometimes.
Not just almost.
A nightmare.
I don't know how he manages. What do you do except drinking beer?
What, today?
No, how to cope.
Nothing else.
Do you do something like what was it called? Autogenous training or yoga or?
Well, I've been
praying.
thinking. I pray a bit. I pray a bit. I'm always trying to think about a thing called the Alexander technique. I'd like to try that. I think I'll do that when I get back. I keep saying I'm going to do these things, but inevitably I get sidetracked, and I start to.
What's praying? You say you pray a bit.
Well,
You're not religious.
Not really. I just sort of pray to me head, if you like. Just a belief that it helps. It's quite nice. It's a kind of relaxing. It's a kind of therapy. Although you're not praying to any great figure in the sky or anything. Maybe it's the beginnings of a therapy for me, a kind of meditation. Yeah.
But you don't do it institutionalized, like Disciplin, 20 minutes.
No. I should do. Leslie does it all the time, but I should listen to her more, but I don't. But I have a great belief in the future, and I'm a great belief all of these things pass, like the drinking phase or the depression. It usually clears itself.
You get depressed?
Very, very depressed, yeah. I'm very depressed about the world and about, like I suppose, all sensitive people do. And I get very depressed about, what people do to each other. But,
what do you do then?
Well, I just wait for
Please give us a recipe.
I wait for it to go. I just wait for it to go. Well, I try and use it in the end. I suppose creatively you try and use it if you're a writer or whatever.
Okay, can you make music when you play?
No, not really. No. I try. But
there's nothing you can do.
No. Just sort of lie there and wait for it to end. But fortunately, I'm in a situation where I can do that sometimes. A lot of people who do become very depressed are actually having to do a day-to-day job.
Yeah. Well, when you're on tour, you can't do it either, can you?
Well, not really, no.
The record Bursting Bubbles seems to me very depressed.
Yeah.
Most depressed record of you.
Yes, I think so, yes.
But also very strong.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I like that record.
Yeah, but was you really depressed in this time, or
that was the beginning of a breakdown, really, of what I suppose you'd call a nervous breakdown, really.
Oh, yes.
And that was the first step. The second one was Sanity Stomp, where I became a little bit religious.
Yes.
And the last two records have been totally sane, but almost, yeah. I mean, by sanity, I mean I just mean someone who is in touch with reality, not living so much in the head that they can relate to people and move from A to B without interpreting everything. Yeah. That is madness to me.
Can you say that again?
Well, I'll try. I mean, sanity is the being in touch with reality, with people, from the physical, moving from A to B. And insanity seems to me to be all in the head, and the gathering and the interpretation of the basic physical world as something which is either a plan or has an order to it, or has a succession to it. But I think it's all to do with an avoidance of the reality of death as well, which is something which, and that's why people become religious, or that's why they become mad, if you like, because religion is madness too. It's a polite form of madness. It has to be. I was extremely sad, but that's the way it is. And for anyone who is educated into religion, brought up as I was as a Catholic, it's a very disturbing and it's almost like a crime to give a child hope and say, this is. The only heaven there is here on earth, This is what we've got to try and get it right. But I mean, I can't. I just find it. I mean, occasionally I break down over that point. I wish that there was a God. I wish I was God or somebody was God.
Yes.
And it's incredible. Usually when I get very drunk, I become God. I mean, I laugh about it the next day, and I think it's very funny. But
you seem to succeed holding up the notion that it's going to be better.
Well, yeah, I think it is. You see,
say an optimistic point.
Well, I think you have to be an optimist. I think you have to discipline yourself to be an optimist. I do. And it sounds bizarre. It's bizarre to say that. But I can't. Currently, I can't think of any other way of surviving, having hope, and for a better future. And all around, you see it anyway. You see either your children or And life is made up of those lovely moments for me. A nice succession of days with, and then bunk, something happens. But I seem to be in very close contact with my past, I don't seem to have many shutters, everything is relevant, in my head it all buzzes around, And
that's how I see most people handling it. They're not disciplining themselves to be an optimist, but they just shut down the intake.
Sure.
Not.
Sure.
No.
Sure. Yes, well, I don't do that very often, I'm afraid. But I think I've developed a way of doing it, which is probably as much to do with drinking and to do with little bouts of madness, And people say, well, you be careful, you may not come back from that, crazy. But I seem to have found a way now. I can deal with it much better, and there is actually another voice at the back of my head which says, "Don't be so fucking stupid." Even when I'm very drunk or very sad or whatever situation I'm in, there's something at the back says, Get, the old cliches, get up, look out the window, or clean your teeth, or do something,
How did you get into psychiatry?
How did I? I? In a very strange way, because I came from art school, and I applied for this job as a therapist as an artist, creative person in a hospital in the north of England, and that's how I got into it. And I got the job, to my surprise, and I suppose I made the most of it for 4 years. I learnt all the time and read some, but really learnt from experience, really.
What do you read?
Well, what did I read? I suppose I read Lang, a bit of Lang, and a bit of Jung, and a bit of Freud, and all the usual bits and pieces. But now, I hardly ever read about it at all, because I did, last year in Belgium, I did a gig with Ronnie Lang, me and him together.
Huh?
R.D. Lang and me together, which was an incredible show.
What did you do together?
Well, he writes poetry, and the guy plays the piano.
Yeah. He plays the piano?
He plays a bit. But,
you played the piano?
No. Well, another guy played the piano. And I just played the guitar and the drummer. And he came on the stage a bit, and I did. And it was an incredible success. We should do it more often. But he was very drunk. And I was getting more drunk.
What's he doing these days?
Well, he's just got a new book out. I saw advertised in one of the magazines in England. I don't know what it's called. He's just collating and collecting information, and like he always did, and observing and writing. But a great man, I think. Great man. And, great feeling to work with somebody who's, the combination was perfect, really, because he probably has a much better view of the structure of mental illness than I do, but I'm much closer to it emotionally, probably. But I'm able to interpret it too, so in my own way. So the combination is very, very good.
Yeah, I can imagine. Counselling.
The place was packed. There was 800, 900 people in this, and mental patients there, and there was full of psychiatrists from all over the world.
Psychiatrists?
Yeah, all kinds of people. Therapists, psychiatrists. All of them screaming and shouting at them. Just loving it all. Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. And then we went to a restaurant afterwards and talked to them. We couldn't talk anymore, I think. And just went home to bed after that. Leslie was there too, and she loved it. In fact, there should have been a tape of it, but I don't. The Belgian radio taped it. It was very good of them when you think about it.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, well, I would like to get the tape. I'll tell them.
You're going to the radio tomorrow? Swiss radio.
Is it radio tomorrow? Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Is it? Yeah. Is it?
They like you a lot, Dave.
Yeah.
You got a place full of your fans. And keep playing your records whenever a new one comes out.
Lovely.
It's Kevin Coyne.
That's true.
Yeah. Funny, isn't it? Nobody buys them. Well, people do, but I always feel my records get passed around.
From hand to hand.
Yeah, they do. But people take a long time to get into it, and then they go and buy another one. Yeah. Listen to that.
Well,
I listen to them like that myself. It takes me a long time to get into one of my records, really, because they recorded so quickly, and often I'm not sure what I've said,
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, I really approve of what I said on the latest album. I'm really getting into songs like Liberation, Fun Flesh, and all of them.
Yeah, and by now you know what goes on.
Because you see, I don't write any of the lyrics down. I mean, I just sing all of them out the top of my head. So when it's finished, so sometimes that's why there isn't a lyric sheet. It's because I can't always be bothered to. I have to listen to the record and write it all down. But my son did the last two, which is incredible. I know it's quite ridiculous, but if you're working with anybody in the studio, they're a bit confused at first, and they think, "What's he doing? He keeps changing the lyrics, and good lyrics. That he's changing my camera." I can't work any other way. I don't want to, because I want to be as close to the moment as possible. And if I wouldn't. I mean, if I wrote lyrics for somebody else, I would actually write them on paper. But for myself, I just want to be really right there. You know?
Present.
Yeah, sure. And be as honest and as accurate. With maybe even if it doesn't always make good poetry, I don't think that's important. I think it's, you know, if there's cliches come in, I don't care about that. I mean, the meat of the thing is the expression, you know, the verbal expression at the time. And, I know what the themes are normally, you know. I know what I'm currently thinking about, and it usually works out to be very accurate, you know, a very accurate reflection. I don't make it very easy for myself.
No, you don't.
I don't think that's what life's about anyway, making it easy for yourself. Well, I mean, there obviously has to be a point in your life where you do have to sit back and...
Have you ever been in the third world?
Never, no, never. I passed through India once on the way to Australia twice.
Englishers are not big travellers, are they?
I don't know, I seem to have travelled a lot, but not to the third world, no. I was going to do a tour of South America, actually.
You were?
Yeah, everywhere. Venezuela, I mean,
every other country you can't play.
Yeah.
And remaining half, you'll get into trouble.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Where could you play? In Venezuela? In Ecuador?
Yeah. Possibly.
In Peru, maybe?
Yeah, Peru, Lima,
Peru,
certainly, yeah.
Yeah. In Bolivia, no more. In Chile, no, never. In Brazil, maybe now, maybe.
In Argentina?
Forget it.
Yeah.
In Colombia, forget it.
Yeah.
So,
it's as real as that, is it?
Yeah.
Well, you know the situation. Huh? So that's interesting, yeah.
I don't know. Certainly Venezuela and Ecuador.
Yeah.
But even Brazil, which is liberating, said to be liberating, opening up. I wouldn't know if you could get a gig there.
Very interesting, yeah.
Well, hard time.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, you could go traveling like that for fun.
Yeah, just take a guitar and go.
Do that.
Well, I'm sure I could, yeah.
See the world.
Yeah. I see the world every day. I'm sure it's not that different anywhere else.
It is very different.
Well, what more poverty, more pain, more Catholicism?
A lot closer to death.
Yeah. Sure.
And, well, mentality differences. Like, I was in Southeast Asia last year.
Yeah.
And
what as a journalist?
No, just privately.
Yeah.
Went to see my friend there.
Yeah.
And what Buddhism does to people. That's something. It's a lot.
I can well imagine. Yes.
It's been there 2,500
You
years.
know what Hinduism does to people. What the Muslim religion does to people.
It does make a big difference.
Yeah.
I'm interested in that a lot.
Me too. Well, I maybe have to do this. You're probably right. You've got
South America would be interesting, but
yeah.
Well, you can always go and just play and until they found out you're in the next country.
Yeah.
You can always do that. I mean.
Yeah. 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 But then again, you can't do everything. You know, I mean, all of this is a kind of conscious thing as well, isn't it? You know, the prospect of a poverty-stricken world, a third world. I still think the real politics are between men and women in the end. I think the real politics are between men and women in the end, wherever they are, whatever religion they're supposed to be, you know. Once they get that balance right, then I think things might change, but I can't see anything changing unless very basic attitudes and longings and, you know, the dialogue is very distorted at the moment.
Well, how is it going to change? I mean, I don't see much change.
I don't know either. That's what makes me depressed. I don't know. Occasionally you meet someone who really understands, yes. Well, I mean, we all do.
I don't know if I understand myself. I mean,
well, maybe I don't know either, but I just know there is something very radically wrong there, you know, and about that situation, and all I can do is maybe write songs about it and say things about it, and in whatever position I'm in, and that's if I like my job, amongst other things. The mind becomes very confused when you really consider the size of the problem, but maybe that's what you're saying. But,
well, there's no use throwing the towel and saying it's nothing to change anyway.
No, I'd never give in. I refuse to give in on any level. Maybe madness is a fine protection for truth. I think sometimes. That's why people go mad often, because they know.
It's not the stupid ones who go mad.
I don't be so sure about that. Can I have another beer, please? Another beer, please?
You have a two-board? That's a good one.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I should go back and get a taxi. What time is it?
Yeah, let's ask. I'll drive you there if you want me to.
That'd be very kind of you. I appreciate it. Look, I mean, there is so much you can do. That's all. That's what makes me, like being so working class in the beginning and thinking how hopeless everything is. And here I am sitting in Zurich. It's better than where I was before. And and I know much more, and I've got something to say now. I could easily have been the person, one of the stupid ones, if I'd have thought about it.
Entschuldigung, wie spät ist es? No, 40. Do you want another beer?
Yeah.
5 to 5.
Yeah,
Een stoelbank, hoor. Ja. Zo, even weinig
I mean, I could have been, It's just sort of fate, if you like, whatever the word is that pulls you from one situation to another. With a lot of effort from yourself, of course, recognising the signs and pushing on.
A lot of people just honestly don't seem able, even with a lot of effort, to understand a few things, or even to take a distance towards themselves and being able to laugh about themselves, the whole complex of humour and whatever, not taking yourself so seriously and all.
Sure.
I mean, most people honestly don't seem able, particularly men.
True.
So, what can you do?
Well, they're the ones on the line, now, men. Their truth and their honesty and all that they've always believed is very much under question. And they're frightened,
Yeah, and that makes them harder.
At the moment, yeah. But I think that'll change.
Inshallah, what would the Muslims say?
I hope it.
I don't know.
Well, I don't know. You only have to walk out with a woman to see how difficult it is for a woman. maybe a little softening on either side, maybe, I don't know. Then again, that's all happened before, and the consequences have been very bad. You know.
This guy, Tevelein, he wrote a book in German, which is called Men's Fantasies. And I think it's one of the basic books of this century.
Yeah, well, I'd like to read that.
Yeah, it's tough reading, and he packs in so much.
Yeah.
It was written as a dissertation in Germanistics, but it's really psychology gone all the way. He goes, I don't know how many steps further than Lange and Cooper. And
Yes. Well, they're very much stuck, I think, anyway.
Well, they did their contribution.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But what he's doing.
I mean, they're stuck as men now.
Okay.
Carry on.
Since 77 you have made 9 records, almost 2 records
Since
in a
77,
year.
yeah.
In a year. All own songs by your own. What's the secret of your never tired creativity?
My never tired creativity. Well, it's just that I have something to say, I think, you know, and I record very quickly, you know, and make records.
Yes.
So I don't spend 6 months making a record or anything ridiculous like that. I normally spend 2 or 3 days in the studio, at least on the last 3 or 4 albums. That's how long they've taken to write from the very beginning to the end, and the mixing of everything. So the creativity, when I'm working, it comes in a very short burst, and it's usually the culmination, the gathering of a lot of thinking over a period of months. But I am creative anyway, and otherwise I write and paint, and I do some acting sometimes, and I do a lot of drinking, and I do a lot of mixing with people, and all of this is the records are very much an outlet for all of my observations and feelings. Fortunately, I've been with record companies that let me do exactly what I want to do. Anyway, I wouldn't tolerate it any other way anyway. So, but the secret is just having something to say, I suppose. That's a short answer.
Yes. You often change the musicians. I've heard that you just a few days before a tournée, you know the musicians who come with you.
Often they've never played the tunes before, we usually have a rehearsal, but the rehearsal usually lasts about 3 hours, which isn't very long. And usually we finish up in the pub, and because I don't like rehearsing very much, and there is a lot of spontaneity in what I do, and once they've done 1 or 2 gigs, they soon get into the groove really, and the whole thing is about spontaneity and about reacting to an audience at a particular time and not planning anything so tightly that everything becomes inflexible. I could never work like that, and the reason why musicians come and go often is that I consciously want to change the situation. It's not because I fall out with the musicians. It's often, we go as far as we can go, and then someone else comes in, and maybe those people, they come back again, and that often happens too. So there's like a large pool of musicians that I know, many.
Oh yes.
And they come and they go, and it's a very healthy situation, because you always look for someone who's going to be there permanently, but it never seems to happen.
Yes.
Maybe with Peter Kirtley, the guitar player, I think he'll be there for a long time, because he shares a sort of creative impulse with me musically, which I like very much. And I like him as a person very much too. And he has a similar background to me, working class, all the usual things. And that helps a lot, but who knows what the future brings anyway, musically.
Yes. He's great.
I think he's marvellous, because he's not flash, or not
He could be,
showy. No limitations. That's the nice thing. But he feels limited. I think that's the way real creativity begins, because you always think there are limits, and then you surprise yourself, And that's sure, and that's why I like him. I think he's as surprised as anyone the way he plays.
Yeah.
He has, become a much more powerful player over these last 6 months than he was in the beginning. But I think he always was anyway. But he's. But I like his acoustic playing. I like acoustic. It's quieter, and I get tired of loud electric guitars and sort of macho music. I don't like that kind of thing. I think it's very outdated, and although I do it, but almost as a joke sometimes,
Yes.
Audiences like to jump up and down, I suppose, but
Well, I did.
well, sure. I mean, one of the illusions, I think, old rock and roll illusions, is that you have to play extremely loud and with a loud drum beat, and in order to promote, that old-fashioned idea. But audiences are changing now, I think.
Was heißt before?
Angel.
You have played with various musicians, various instruments, saxophone on one record, accordion and organ, and also various style of music, with punk, with roots, with
the roots.
On Pointy Finger, I think it was a jazz rock influence, and now on politics, techno sound.
Yeah.
you like this changing? Is it not dangerous to scatter?
What to change?
Yes.
To have so many various styles.
Yes.
No, I don't know. No, not at all. No, I think I like to make records that are different every time, and I wouldn't. People often say to me, "Why don't you make another record like Millionaires and Teddy Bears or Marjorie Razorblade or something like that?" But
yes.
I can't, and anyway, if I could, I wouldn't, because I grow older every day, and I listen to what goes on around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the use of the synthesizer, I've used that just because in a way it's very cold, the synthesizer, and I just wanted to put some emotional words, if you like, strength over it, because all the bands I hear using synthesizers, the lyrics are cold, and maybe that's the way younger people feel, and maybe that's a true reflection, but I'd like to put something with a little bit of strength, a little bit of emotion over the top of this very mechanical music.
Yes.
And that's why I did it. It was a deliberate thing, and to put acoustics set on the other side was, to draw probably the most extreme comparison. Make two total extremes, really.
Contrast.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I like the techno sound. Like it.
I mean, for a lot of people don't like it. They say, "Well, we love the first side, but the second side."
Really?
Yeah. But it's only because they never have actually ever listened to synthesizer players before.
Yeah.
And if you mention, say, Kraftwerk to them, or someone like that, or Tangerine Dream, or they say, "Oh, I hate that music," but they never really listen. And I actually like a lot of Kraftwerk and bands like that. Although it's cold and it seems to be in many ways a real reflection of the way so many people feel, and that's surely, got to be good, I think.
Yeah.
I wouldn't use it all the time. Probably never do it again. I'm sure of that. But who knows? The next album may be totally. I might play everything myself. I've always wanted to do an album and do that, and I think there's a possibility of me doing
play all the instruments.
play all the instruments. Yeah. I don't know how I'm going to go on the road and do all the songs, but I'd like to do a lot more with piano. I've recorded a lot of piano things at home which haven't come out on record, and I want to play some blowing things, saxophones. I've tried all of that and see what comes. No, I play harmonica, so and I can get a good sound out of the saxophone. It's just that I know if I really concentrated over a few days, I'm sure I could get something out that was, suited, which I could get, close to my feelings. But just wait and see. I probably won't do it.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, I also like the saxophone on two records. The second on the
Chris Hunter on Bursting Bubbles. Yeah.
Yes, and on the Playing in the Night.
Oh, Blaming on the Night.
It's
Yeah,
also saxophone.
Ruin O'Loughlin, yeah, an Irish player from Dublin. Yeah. He's got a very painful sound. He's a good player. I might work with him again, actually.
Yeah.
Excuse me, he rang me up recently, and
yes.
it might be a start of another connection. I don't know.
Yeah. Why have you leave Virgin Records after 10 years?
After 8 years, I think it was.
Oh, 8, yes. Almost 10 years. You was the last interesting artist from the beginning.
Well, I left because I wanted to change, that was all. And I wanted to go. Virgin had become a very big company and a little impersonal. And although they didn't really want me to go, and I know they didn't, but I just felt I had to have a change. And I signed for Cherry Red in England, which is just 3 people who run a small label with some very interesting artists on it.
Yes.
And with a lot of experiment on it and a lot of positive ideas for the future.
Yes.
And that's, strangely enough, the first album I made for them, Pointing the Finger, was a fairly orthodox record, but I just like that, and the close contact with the A&R man there, you know, a guy called Mike Always, you know, I like very much, and someone who comes around to your house and then is a friend, and you know, and you can actually discuss.
Yeah.
And the main business is not money, you know, and not to say that Virgin just has grown so big that I don't think they even believed that would happen. But now they are one of the major companies in England, so I don't know. I'm not interested in all of that, you know, daily radio thing, all of that. You know, I can't come to terms with it. I mean, I don't mind my records being played on the radio, but I don't, in a way, like them being promoted like, you know, along with Queen and, you know, and Brian Ferry. I have nothing to do with those people. I never had anyway. And, I mean, I don't mind what they do really, but it's not what I do. And that's another reason to go to a small label. I suppose Cherry Red was already becoming more and more popular in England and has got a reputation. They may go the same way as Virgin, I don't know.
Yes.
But
now you have
I'm very happy with it.
Fresh wind.
Oh, yes.
And they are very active, I think, Cherry.
Yeah, well, they are pushing all the time, and they know that they're doing something different and something that will, you know, maybe alter a lot of attitudes in the music business, and I think that's, you know, that's good. Virgin may change it up, but Virgin may go back to what they were, or be more open-minded, but I somehow don't feel that will happen, and that's why I left, you know.
Yes, that's good. I suppose
I could have been at Virgin forever, but I suppose, but I just had to change, you know.
That's good, because I suppose that Virgin have put you out.
No, it wasn't like that at all. No.
So it's better.
No, well, I mean, the fact is, I'm on Areola in the Benelux countries, which is one of the big labels, and there's a totally different attitude to Cherry Red. And I quite like the contrast of the two small companies. I now have maybe the best of both worlds, and
yes.
Well, I mean, people may think that that was far from the truth, you know.
Yeah.
They were very surprised that I wanted to go, and they didn't. And even when I went back to Virgin a few weeks ago and went to see them, it was as if they wanted me to go back, and because we got on really, I was good friends. I mean, there's no reason why people can't be friends even now.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. On your lyrics, there are often problems of the roles of woman and man. For example, Don't Blame Mandy and Marigold. And now on the new record, Liberation is a very clear statement against male chauvinism.
Yeah, sure.
Do you believe in man's movement?
I do, yes.
In parallel to the
yes,
women's movement?
I do very much so. Yes, and what more can I say? I mean, it's very, very hard for anyone who is striving to change, you know, and the old order, and all around us, you know, we can see the same mistakes being made again and again. But I'm full of hope for the liberation of men, as you know, really am, and I don't think it should be a sort of deeply spiritual thing or anything like that. It's just very practical things that have to be changed, and it's, you know, there are sort of sexual things, you know, I think a lot of that has to be sorted out, and how, I'm not sure, but I spend most of my time thinking about it, so these days, but I mean, in a way, I live with a feminist, and but we also happen to have been married for 18 years, near enough, and we've changed together, really. I laugh how we used to be, but I mean, that's all part of experience. But it gets better. It gets better because of the understanding becomes stronger, and I don't know whether I could live with anyone who was, you know, I don't know. I prefer friendship more than anything, and I think the friendship between men and women is crucial, really, to the survival of everything. You know, it's certainly in the Western world. I mean, it's
about the friendship between men and men.
And men, sure, yeah. I think that's crucial too. But I know a good deal about that. If you're in a band, you know, and travel around, and, you know, but you know, I mean, when you say that, I mean, it's the hatred and the misconceptions in men that worry me and frighten me, really, and the clinging to old attitudes, which are based upon violence and inner violence, which it's no good saying we all have it. We can all get rid of it as well. But I get a lot of men I get on with very well. But, like Peter Kirtley again, I get on with him because he has similar attitudes about these things to me, and you know, I think that's very important. Yes. With a lot of younger musicians, you don't get that because they come in and they want to be. Could you have a beer? A beer? Yeah. They want to be. They want to be pop stars, and they want to be
loud.
And in a way it's rather lovable, but in another way, you know, it has to be changed. And you know, in a way, the earlier the better, because the illusions, you know, only come to light in your 30s, you know, or whatever. There's no reason why they should, but that seems to have been the case for my generation, you know.
Can you say that again? The illusions.
The illusions come to light, you know, in your 30s, you know. In my generation, that's what happened. A lot of people are now in their 30s, to see, whereas the younger generation, or at least my son, I've got a son of 16. I don't think he has any of the illusions I had at all. You know, it's incredible, really.
What about being a man? And
not. Well, I mean, and people say, "Oh, he's charming," and it's not charm at all. It's just a real genuine love and concern for fellow human beings. I'm amazed, really. But then again, he has lived with two people who, talk about these things. And
on the new record is also an interesting track, Father and Son.
Yeah.
The son said, you always touched fun flesh, but you never touched yourself.
Yes, that's right.
I think that's also important.
Well, I base that very much on the idea of, the Playboy Club and all of that. I tried to imagine someone in those, executive role, with almost, and his son, and him carrying on the ideas to his son, ruining his son, really, for any kind of real relationship.
Yeah.
And
yes.
Are you living just with your family?
Yeah. I mean, I'm hardly ever there. I mean, 6 months of the year I'm away, so on average, yeah, sure. So.
How come you never been here before?
Well, I have been, with that terrible time last time, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I suppose, it takes someone like you to write, or, I don't normally make inquiries about where I'm going to go. Normally people do write, and it's usually at the right time. So maybe if I'd have come in 79 or 80, it might have been very different. And I'm a great believer in fate in that way, that things just sort of fall into place. And I mean, I do know. Do you know Sunrise? Is it Sunrise Studios?
Yeah. Etienne has told me.
Yeah. Well,
You
Etienne
know
came
him.
round to my house and he wanted me to go there and offered me the facilities of his studio and things, which were very nice and which I probably will use now. I don't know, but that was my last contact with anyone from Switzerland. And anyway, it seems right now. Anyway, I know it doesn't.
Yeah.
I've been to Germany.
Kind of fell into place.
Yeah, sure. They do. I mean, if somebody writes, they write because they genuinely want to do something, and same in Germany now, and anywhere else in France and Austria, people do the shows because they really want to do the shows, and they have to accept me, if you like, for what I am, and not as a a little bit difficult sometimes. And like in Austria, I came home halfway through a tour, which I never normally do. I have done it once before, but I found Austria a bit repressive for me, sort of emotionally. But a lot of it was in my own mind. And
What narrow-minded?
not particularly, because the audiences were great, but. I hate to talk about a country as if it's one person, because it isn't. There's so many different people, but I just found it heavy going. I always do. I always find Vienna a very heavy place to be, and
I've never been there.
well, you probably find it.
I'm going there this week.
You'll probably find out if you go there.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I have to get over that. I have to go back, and I have to go and do some more shows there in order to. Keep at it, and I will, because some people were let down, and not that badly, because I can always go back. But but mainly, as I say, in the main, all the people I work with are people who want to do the thing, and it isn't primarily about money. Not really, because I want to make money in order to do other things. I mean, that's all. I'd like to do some producing and help other people, and give people some money to go in the studio and do what they want, things like that. But in the but the main thing isn't money either. Another illusion about the pop star syndrome. Everybody does it because they want to.
Yeah.
In the beginning, perhaps you do, because if you come from a working class background like I did, there aren't many choices to make any kind of real living without working in a factory or being a school teacher, or not the same. But I don't want to be that, and
yeah. The next question is about the relationship to your woman, to Leslie. If you want to talk about
relationship.
What does she do?
What does she do?
Yeah.
Well, she's an art therapist. She works in hospitals doing pictures with supposedly mad people. That's a very dodgy question, answer, I suppose, or question, I don't know. And she paints and...
Hast du verstanden, was sie ist?
Ja.
Maltherapeutin.
Was alt?
Maltherapeutin.
Yeah,
Excuse me,
it's
make sure he knows.
It's the same what you do years ago.
That's right, yes. Only it's much more organised now.
Oh yes.
And it's much better, and the facilities are better, and the whole organisation is much stronger. And well, there's the enormous need for creativity. If there has to be an institution, someone has to be in there involved in creativity. And I mean, it was Leslie who encouraged me to do it in the first place, and now she's doing it.
Yeah. And it's a problem for you to be a father of your children if you are 6 months away.
Not really, because they're very independent and want to be.
Oh yeah.
Understand that what people have to do, often what they have to do, and but I do think sometimes I'd like to slow down a bit, and I may well do that, but I'm a performer as much as anything else, you know, maybe more so than someone who makes records. And you know, anyone who has that problem, you know, has to perform, you know, and a lot of it has what I do as a very therapeutic base for me, and so it has to. So therefore, they accept that, and I never heard them ever say, "Oh." Well, my youngest son used to say that, but they're very busy with their own lives now, and you know, and their own friends. 13.
What they do?
Well, they're both at school, but they're very interested in music and writing, and films, and artistic things generally, and very interested in people too, which is nice, you know. I mean, I do paint a very rosy picture, but I think it's very healthy and far better than I would have hoped, you know. I mean, because I have seen some people in the music business and their children are very strange, but I think, you know, but I think it's because of the rock and roll attitude and the lifestyle. I've never had any of that. We live as you know, on a very ordinary street with. And you know, we laugh at the other side of it, you know.
Yes.
Darf ich Zwischenfrage stellen? Was there any point in your life when you felt you had the choice between being a pop star, and going on with what you wanted to do? Yeah,
I think there has been one or two points when I felt the pressure. Maybe I felt it in Austria too, that perhaps the attitude of the audience or something wasn't exactly right, you know. For me, I don't like too much fuss, you know, and then I begin to feel like almost like a puppet, and you know, I have to, for my own survival, I must maintain contact with reality, you know. I must have, you know. Well, if I drink a lot, I lose that contact. But usually, if I'm drinking a lot, it's because I'm under pressure to escape from reality. You know, I'm being forced into a situation, probably socially, that is not. You know, but it's a hazard. But I just so desperately, desperately want to do what I want to do, and I want to carry on with these albums. You know, about human relationships. I want to go further into it, and. In my own way, I want to change, you know, the singer-songwriter syndrome and all of that, you know, because I don't hear too many people writing, not from the male side, about anything that is meaningful in that area. So I need I need to keep a very straight path, you know, and if I get sidetracked, it's. People are very kind. People love what I do, and they sit down. Sometimes you want to be on your own, or sometimes you just really want to think the next step, you know.
Yes. You are well known as drinking beer.
Oh yeah.
What's for you the experience of to be drunk?
Well,
is it a creative impulse?
Well, I see it as maybe even a suppression of a creative impulse, and almost to stop the brain working in one direction, and to create a fantasy world of alcohol. I know it's not particularly good for me, but it seems to be probably one of the only ways at the moment that I can find any kind of release from this sort of drive that I have, this sort of, and it's been a common problem amongst artists, I think, for generations, and it is a problem in some ways, but it's a problem if it affects other human beings around you. But in the main, with me, I think people who work with me understand, you know, or they soon come to understand that a drunken Kevin Coyne is not necessarily the Kevin Coyne that is around the next morning. You know,
Was hat das geheißen? Was hat er gesagt?
Also die Leute verstehen mit der Zeit, dass der betrunkene Kevin Coyne ist nicht das gleiche wie der Kevin Coyne vom nächsten Mal.
Ah, ja.
Das ist ein gewisser Unterschied.
It is a kind of a dichotomy, you know. It's two sides sort of split, but it isn't. On a good day, it all moves together and there's no problem. But,
Yes.
But you know.
You come to grips with your own schizophrenia.
Yeah, sure. But I often think if people drank a bit more, that there are people who go the other extreme and don't drink anything, you know, and you know, become you know, something else again, you know.
Like what? I don't drink anything.
Well, you're all right, I think. Of course I don't. Of course, well, you smoke then, yeah. It's some kind of oral gratification too, isn't it?
Yeah, I smoke grass.
Well, you see, I don't, and I don't. I never really liked drugs at all. I never liked the feeling of. But alcohol is a drug too, so. But I just think I prefer it. This alcohol has an edge, if you like, and. But I worked with drug addicts for 2 years, and I worked with all the consequences of drugs, which terrified me. Not to say that grass is necessarily, you know, bad or whatever. I wouldn't know really, but maybe I just enjoyed drinking. You know, liquidity, as my friend says. You know, just the liquid floating in a sea of liquid.
Have you ever heard of a guy called Tebelite?
No. I thought he was going to say Charles Bukowski or somebody like that, no?
Maybe if I write it down.
No. No.
We'll talk about it all.
Yeah, all right.
Okay. You was year before you was on the One World Poetry Festival in Amsterdam.
I was this year as well.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
And you paint and you have made one film.
Yeah.
Will you what's called? Continue this work with readings and exhibitions of your paintings?
Yes,
films?
I hope so, yeah. I don't have a lot of time to organise it. I carry on doing it, you know, light drawing and painting, but I just tend to pile them up, stockpile them, if you like. And, because it's a very natural process for me. I draw most days when I'm at home, and this is another reason probably why I drink, on the road, because I don't have all my books and things around me, and I can't, you know. I'm quite disciplined at home, really. You know, a lot of people would laugh at that and say you're not at all, but I actually am, and I do have a plan, you know, most days to write, and I go to the bar at 2 o'clock and come back at 3, and then I go to the bar at 10 and come back. I try and make it.
Well, you have to go back
home
at 3.
Yeah, well, it's in a way it's not a bad thing, you know. In another way, it's a bore, but because a lot of good conversations start in bars, and suddenly the bell rings and you have to go home. But
yes. And are you interested if, for example, in Zurich, someone wants to do an exhibition with your paintings?
Yes, I am interested. Yeah, but I'm very precious about them in a way, and I never like to let things go, you know. But if it was done properly, I would. Yes, of course. Yes.
Yes.
What would you consider properly?
Well, it's just well organised. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, I could send the things over, or somebody could come and get them, and there you are, you know.
Veit is involved in a lot of art.
Yeah, but a lot of what I do is just drawings, you know, hundreds of drawings now. And, you know, I'd like to see a room full of them, hundreds of them. You know, that's the way I imagine them exhibited, just all over the place, you know.
Yes, yeah, I like it very much.
You want to do something like that?
maybe.
It would be nice to go along with the concert.
Well, I mean, it's just another area, and it would add an extra dimension, I think, to people's attitude. I think. I don't know it wouldn't, but I think it would actually.
Fine. You are a friend of the music of Captain Beefheart and John Lydon. Heel.
Yeah.
And what do you know about Tim Buckley?
Well, not a lot really. A few of his tunes, but I always found his work devastating. I just think he's one of the greatest singers who ever lived, and I understand his angst and his pain. If he could have lived a little longer, he might have seen some daylight now. But I just think he's got one of the great, if you like, one of the great male voices.
Yes.
What is angst?
Angst. Well, it's
a German word.
Yeah, it's like.
In German,
it's restless.
Fear.
Yeah, restlessness, fear. Yeah. That constant quivering on the edge.
Yes. And why do you think he died so early? Because of heroin?
I don't think that was the main cause. I would have thought that he's all the terror and all the love he put into his music was probably too much for him. And in that time, he lived in America, which is not always, and was never really very sensitive to what he was trying to say.
Yeah.
And he would, he would possibly be seen as what could I say, just as a lunatic or someone on the edge, in society, especially one like America, which pretends to be so well organised, doesn't often recognise a man of Buckley's power and pain, And, I wrote a song for him once. It's on a tape somewhere, when he died, where I sang in his style, if you like, and this is kind of tribute. I'd like to find it somewhere. I've got so many tapes at home that I can't.
Oh, yes.
Someone at the moment is going through all my tapes, and Cherry Red are putting out a 4-album set of unreleased Kevin Coyne tracks.
Oh, yes.
And my son is working on it with the A&R man from Cherry Red, so with a book, and so I suppose it'll eventually, when it does come out, that song about Tim Buckley, they'll find it, I'm sure.
Okay.
But it's so much stuff, I've got so much material, miles and miles of tapes, and hundreds of songs that have never been heard. They're not, this is what you hear on the LPs. It's just the tip of the iceberg, really.
What do you mean a book? Is it the four record set come with a book?
Yeah, it will do. Yeah, with a book of drawings and writings, and relevant maybe to the periods in my life from which the songs came. But it's a very exciting. But I have nothing to do with it because I just can't. My brain can't handle going through hundreds of tapes, and that's why I keep making new records, because I go into the studio so often. I'll go in for a day and we put 4 more songs down, and somebody will say, well, what are we going to do with these now? You've done it again, we don't know what to do. And I have to say, you have to leave them for a while, and then they get stuck against the wall, and
Yeah.
And then somebody comes in and says, well, those tapes will all be erased because you've left them next to a... But, I know there's so much... Virgin have hundreds of songs, too. And, it's ridiculous, really.
Yeah.
It's just this creative impulse which I can't seem to stop.
Yes.
You've always been like that.
Right from a child, yeah. Sure, right. Always. When I was at art school, I always painted 20 more pictures than anybody else. I don't know why. A lot of them don't exist anymore, but I mean, I've got the art side of it down to something small, and I can keep it in control. But I'd still like to have a house with where I could paint really massive pictures, but I probably get that in the end.
Yes.
I mean, I know that Captain Beefheart has a caravan in the desert or something, and he's got no room to paint, and I don't know whether I'd like to live in a caravan in the desert, but I know I have no room to often to paint it, sort of.
Will you continue to work with Dagmar Krause, Robert Veit and Roots?
Well, Robert and I don't know. I mean, it's a very casual thing, you know. With Dagmar, I'd like to work with her again, obviously, but I think maybe the time will be right in a few months' time, and we can, you know, because there was a little bit of a break there in a relationship which lasted maybe nearly 2 years, you know. Now I'm back in touch with Bob Ward and with, and a lot of the tensions of the past have gone. So who knows? I'd love to work with Dagmar again. In fact, I did write some songs for her, but I didn't really explain to her probably what they were about. So, but they are still around, and
yes.
I mean, I love her voice. I think she's one of the greatest women singers. Again, unbelievably good, and not. She makes most women singers just look like they're just beginning. You know, she gives everything she has, and But I know how much more difficult it has been for her, you know, to get anywhere at all. You know, against a very hostile, I know that's why she gets so angry and depressed. I understand it more clearly now than I did before. You know. Maybe we had to go through this period of silence to bring something else together.
Ja. Also es hat für sie so viel schwieriger gewesen, mit ihm zusammenzuarbeiten als für ihn mit ihr. Und sie hat offenbar so depressive Anwandlungen dann gekriegt und so. Aber er versteht jetzt irgendwie, warum das so ist für uns. Es haben offenbar Spannungen gehabt in dieser Zusammenarbeit und sich auch so getrennt.
Yes. And with Roots?
The Roots. Well, I thought, the great punk band. I mean, just songs like Babylon is Burning and We're in a Rut, and songs like that were great. And the things I did with them, I like, because we did them in one day, everything. I wrote the songs on the Sunday, we went in on the studio on the Monday, and we did it all, and then mixed it, and that was it. And it cost about, the whole session cost about £100, I think. And they loved it, they loved working fast, but since then they haven't done very much, and but I think the real reason is because the singer Malcolm Owen left, and he was so much part of them that they really haven't recovered as yet. I mean, they're still together in a way, but I mean, they have to grow up a bit more, and I did some lyrics for them around Christmas time. I went in the studio, but I didn't think they were quite ready for. They were very confused, I felt. And I was a bit confused as to what exactly to do for them. I think they wanted to recreate that session that we had the year before, and you can't always do that. I mean, in fact, I can't do it anyway.
Yeah, of course.
And they were playing. In a way, what I should have done was just sit down with a guitar and take them through some tunes or something. Give them